take 5 minutes, visualize who is that higher level version of yourself. What is she doing? How's she acting? Not necessarily like maybe how much money she's making at that time. And then ask yourself, are you dressing like her today? And if you're not, what changes do you need to make? Okay, so that's mindset wise. Physically, I want you to cleanse that closet because I bet you have so much shit in there. Oh, am I allowed to cuss on here? Okay, perfect. You have so much shit in there that I bet you has tags that hasn't seen the light of day that you're saving for when you reach the weight or for special occasions. You are the special occasion, okay? Stop waiting for special occasions to get dressed.
Welcome back to Secrets of a Corporate Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtain and unveil some of those secrets with tips and tricks that you can apply today to start taking control of your career and progress up the ladder faster. Welcome back to the show, my lovelies. I'm so excited about today's episode because we are talking about how your personal style kind of intersects with your confidence with Samantha Dawn. She was actually my personal stylist who I worked with earlier this year, and it was a life-changing experience. So I'm stoked to have her. She is a personal stylist and style coach. She helps high-level women really level up their everyday style and reestablish who they are in like their next era. She combines her education of psychology with the style piece, which was very interesting to experience. And we'll dive into that a little bit today, but welcome, Sam. It is so amazing to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Why don't you talk through kind of your background and what you're doing now so that listeners can get up to speed? Because I feel like you have a very interesting story of how what you studied kind of became what your career is.
Yeah. So as you said earlier, my background, my degree is actually in psychology. And so I was actually studying to become a therapist, but I am an empath and I was helping delinquent kids at that time. And I just was attaching to them way more than you should as a therapist. So that ended up not working out for me, but I still had this passion for psychology. And then in the interim, I was working for a company. I was like their training manager, still in the fashion realm, but it's just something I've always done on the side with experience of style. I've always styled for other companies, not really for like everyday people. And then it was COVID and I had my first child. And it was that moment where I was like, okay, I am not this person that I was who I attached myself to work. Because I was that person that their identity was work. And before that company, like it was very boho aesthetics. And if you know me now, that is not who I am. But with the company and me, we just weren't in alignment anymore. So I quit that job. And at the same time, I was having a baby, or I had a baby. So I was in my postpartum, really trying to figure out, okay, who am I? I know the person that I am currently is not who I want to become. And so for the first time ever, I was really tapping into like the inner work and adopting psychological strategies onto myself. But at the same time, I was revamping my style because I grew 4 pant sizes. The clothes that were in my closet did not represent the version of myself who I was currently, and then who I was becoming. And so it was weird. It wasn't weird, but it was cool while I was doing a style revamp on myself and psychological practices on myself and in the same time frame. And then it became this powerful tool for me to become and embody this next level version of myself. And then it kind of hit me of like, oh, I think this is what I want to do. I think this is what I want to help other women with, because I know there's a lot of postpartum women in the world. I know there's women trying to figure out like their style and trying to figure out who they are. But overall, just a lot of women want to, level up and they just don't know how, especially with the style. And so I put myself out there on social media. And then here I am 4 years later doing that with women all over the world. I've done it for hundreds of women, Kendall included. And I love it. It's just so cool to see people and women really level up in a way that's always been there. They just couldn't externally see it. And so I was that bridge to really help connect those dots and to just see them send me photos and be like, look at my outfit, I look so good. Or like they just feel a certain different way. It's the reason why I do what I do. So yeah, that's my story in a
Absolutely.
nutshell.
I absolutely love your story. And it's funny, as somebody who's been through the process on the other side, I will say it was definitely starts with the psychology, right?
Yeah.
Like our very first call, we did some exercises and you were like, it's okay to cry. And I was like, I am not crying on a call with my stylist. I am fine. I am fine. But it was because it forces you to kind of look at who you are and who you want to be and what that version of you does. And I think it was so interesting for me, who's somebody who similar has a lot of the identity wrapped up in the work and a lot of the identity in my quote unquote success and how I measure that. That when you're asked to pull back and really think about yourself and do some of that inner work, it like totally flipped the script for me. So I think what you're doing is so powerful. It was so amazing. And the second thing that I'll just add quickly for anyone who's listening is, so Sam and I both happen to live in Colorado. We've never actually met in person, but we both live in the state. And Colorado is a cash state. I'm just going to throw this out there. So it is a like jacket, leggings, hiking boots is like a dressed up going to a steakhouse kind of state. And there are pockets where that's not true. But on the whole, I'm curious, because this is totally off script, but I'm just so curious about your experience living in this state. Like, I feel like when I wear outfits that you and I've selected together or that I'm putting together from things we've talked about, and I go out, people are like, do you have a party to go to? Like, why are you so dressed up? I'm curious if you experience something similar just because of where we live.
Oh, every day of my life. Even my husband, he's like, we're just going to Costco. What are you doing? But it's really like my philosophy with style is like, it's how I want to feel. Like how I teach my clients is dress based off of how you want to feel and wear the clothes to match that. Or think about how you want to feel and wear the clothes to match that. Because if I'm thinking about where I'm going, who I'm going to see, I'm dressing to match other people's energies. And it's exhausting to dress for people's expectations and energies. And I just don't like putting that type of pressure on myself. I have enough pressure to deal with being a mom. And so I always get asked like, oh, where are you going? And I'm like, to Target. But it's just how I want to feel. And it's in full expression of who I am. And I'm in control of that because I'm dressing for my own wants and personal needs. I'm not dressing for other people. And so, yeah, Colorado, I'm quote unquote overdressed for any room that I walk in, but I would 1,000% would rather be overdressed than underdressed, because overdressed is not a bad thing in my perspective.
No, it so resonates with me what you're sharing, because I have always been kind of the overdressed person and I have a hard time gauging. And I remember I had a girlfriend who every time we would go out would text me like, what are you wearing? And to your point, it's like an energy matching thing of like, I want to be in a similar space. And I think figuring out how you want to feel, like for me, it's a big confidence thing.
Yeah.
If I'm dressed well and my accessories are all put together and my makeup's done and my hair matches what I'm supposed to from a volume perspective, which we'll talk about probably later in the episode, I feel better when I go do things. And if I'm out in sweatpants and a sweatshirt, my hair in a bun and no makeup, which also happens, I'm a mom too, and sometimes life. But when that happens, if I run into somebody, I'm like, oh, I really should have gotten dressed. This is not the way I want to feel in this moment. This is not the vibe, right? And so I do think what you're sharing is something that is poorly taught, I guess. And you talk about this on your social media a lot, of like, stop feeling like getting dressed up is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's just something that it's always been, people project their own insecurities onto you. And so if they are not at your higher level, they want to drag you down so they feel more comfortable, right? Psychologically, that's what's happening. And for me, I refuse. I refuse to be dragged down. My higher level self, I see her and she is this powerful woman who walks in the room and everything magnetizes to it. And I'm not going to let anyone drag that down. But to what you were saying earlier, like when I don't get dressed, there's definitely days where I want to feel like a sack of potatoes. And so I feel like a sack of potatoes, 1,000%. I'm going to honor that. But majority of the time, I am very self-aware that if I don't get dressed, I just don't show up in the same way personally, where I can be at my 100% versus when I'm like not dressed and I'm like, I'm a little lazy. Because psychologically, research shows that when you do get dressed, your productivity levels increase. And so I I'm a very busy woman, high achiever at that. And so I have a lot of things to be productive with. And so if my style can be a tool to help that, why wouldn't I take advantage of that?
Yeah, it's, the old school saying, dress for the job you want. And I think people internalize that as like, well, I'm going to wear a suit because the male executives in my company wear suits and I want to be an executive with them one day. But I think it does translate to the person that you want to become, directly relates to how you feel and how you perceive yourself. And a big part of that is your style. So thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're finding the information on this podcast helpful and you're looking to take control of your career and start to elevate yourself to the next level, go ahead and check out our course. Go to bit.ly/career coach course to get signed up today and to start taking your career to the next level and navigate the secrets of the career game. I want to hear a little bit at a high level. Talk us through kind of your experience of how do you help these women uncover who their future self is? How does that connect with their style? How does that translate into like your process and what you offer that helps these women kind of step into that next version of themselves?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that we do is, so we do like a 7-day style analysis. All my clients do it. And it's really something for me to gauge how you're currently getting dressed, what your intentions are, what your mindset is like. And so if you're listening to this, I want you to ask yourself, like, what is my intention every day? How do I get dressed? Am I dressing to impress or am I dressing to express? Because those are two very different concepts. And I really push my clients and my audience to just go to the dressing to express and really navigating what kind of style blocks that you are having or that are coming up that are not allowing you to dress in the way that you want. Because again, when you are dressing for yourself, you're dressing for your own energy. And when you do that, you either attract what is meant for you and repel what is not meant for you. And I feel like that's just a great philosophy to like go or follow through with when it comes to getting dressed and trying to figure out your style. Because if you are dressing to impress all the time, you're just going to be wearing a costume and it's going to feel really fake, and then it's going to get real exhausting, and then you're going to waste so much money on clothes that do not even feel like you, waste so much time trying to find those clothes and so much energy trying to meet those expectations. And so like overall, like dressing to express and really understanding what are those style blocks that you're holding yourself to, aka what are your style standards. Some examples are, I can't get dressed in a certain way because I'm not a certain size. Or I can't wear form-fitting clothing because I was taught I cannot be sexy, or whatever that style story is for you. And then it goes into, okay, once we understand those style blocks and dressing to express, then it's, okay, who is this higher level version of yourself? What does she dress like? Not even like what does she dress like, but how does she feel? And then finding the style that really matches that, right? Like really understanding, if I wanted to feel powerful and magnetic and a little subtle sexy, I probably wouldn't go towards like an edgier rock boho vibe, right? Like those just don't match in my opinion, right? Style is subjective. So whatever feels like that for you. For me, that's more chic, a little more classy, a little like textures and materials. I can go really specific with this, but once you understand that vision, it's a lot easier to understand what your style is. And then you understand what your body shapes are. And once you understand what your body shapes are, you'll know what kind of cuts and fits work best for you. And then once you know that, editing your closet will be so much easier to get rid of what doesn't serve you so you can make room for the things that do. And then once you know that, you know what you have versus what you need. And then you can shop for the right pieces and you shop at the right places. Don't try to shop for pieces at a store that probably won't have it. It's like going to the grocery store trying to make Asian food, but you're in the Mexican aisle. Like that just doesn't work, right? So, and once you have those pieces and you're shopping for the right pieces, styling becomes just so much easier because putting the pieces together just makes more sense. Yes, there's like style strategies that go into play with it, but just overall arching, like, when you're trying to find your style, don't just go to the store and buy a bunch of clothes because you're doing it backwards. That's how you waste time, money, and energy. Go back to your foundation of your style story, who your higher level self is and how she dresses or how she embodies or what that looks like. and then do all the external pieces next. And then I promise you, so much time, money, and energy will be saved, and you will love your style 10 times more.
So there's two things that you touched on that, as somebody who went through the experience, I want to like spend a little more. So one is I actually have my style profile like pulled up. And for me, this was such an interesting experience because one, in many ways, I feel like you and I are fairly similar, which I think like, right? And so I felt like you nailed it. And I was like, oh my gosh, she like gets me. So the like style types, as an example for listeners of like what I got was like classic, feminine, polished, and tailored. And my style personality was the classy, feminine woman who confidently creates impact in her business and in her family life. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is who I want to be. That's like exactly what I want to step into. And so I do think going back to that, it's interesting as somebody who is what I would have said is like a certified shopaholic, and you experienced it firsthand when we were restocking my closet. Because it's like, I'm only going to get a few things. And then I bought everything on the list, but it's fine. I have not bought anything since then because I don't need it, one. And two, now I'm very picky because it has to fit that classy and feminine woman. It has to fit the certain necklines that I know I like now. And it's just such an interesting experience to like shift into that knowledge. And the second thing that I want to say that piggybacks on that is I'm going to say visual shopper. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to this and you're like, this is all great, but I have no idea what any of it means. I used to look at an outfit on somebody and be like, oh, that looks so great on them. I'm going to buy it. And it's going to look exactly the same on me. Even if logically I know like they are 6 inches taller than me or 4 inches shorter than me, or they have skinnier shoulders than me or a smaller waist than me. It didn't matter. In my head, I was magically going to transform into that person as soon as I put that outfit on. And in learning about our body shapes, it's so funny because now I'll see things and I'm like, oh, that is so cute for her body type. That's not going to translate the same, but I have that knowledge. And I feel like so much of my wasted money was seeing it on somebody else and being like, they look cute. Mm-hmm. I want to be cute. And then once you have this confidence in your style and in your shapes, you can kind of decide what's actually going to suit you in your life. And so I think those are big takeaways for me that helped me feel way more confident shopping. And my husband gets frustrated now because we're, like I said, kind of an impulse shopper. And now we go and he's like, well, what about this? What about this? I'm like, well, I don't need any of that. And he's like, yes, but I want to go impulse shop over there. So I need you to buy some things here so I don't feel as bad about it. Can we go back to how things used to be? And I'm like, yeah, but that's not going to work because that's a crew neck. Crew necks are bad for me. Cannot wear a crew neck. And he's like, uh-huh. And so I do love what you do because I think it is so interesting for somebody like me who I would have said, I dressed well. I look back and I'm like, oh, that explains why I didn't like that outfit on me. Like that neckline didn't work, or those pants were too form-fitting or not form-fitting enough. And it's just so interesting how that knowledge really empowers you. So I'd love to hear from you who has worked with hundreds of clients and done this repeatedly. How do you see this knowledge kind of translating into people's confidence and self-worth? And like, what is that connection that your clients make as they're going through and after this process?
Yeah, I mean, it really shifts from shopping, like for your example, it shifts from shopping analytically versus emotionally. Because when you're shopping, especially impulse buying, because I used to be a shopaholic. I still sometimes have those tendencies where I'm like, ooh, Instagram ad. Okay, add to cart. But you get to this point where you understand analytically what cuts and fits work best for you once you understand your body shapes. Because what's happening if you don't understand that, psychologically, you're just buying a feeling. You're buying, I want to feel cute. Like you said, you're like, oh, she looks so cute. I want to feel that way. Or especially on influencers, they look so happy. They look so freaking confident. I want to feel that way. So you buy the item. That's what's happening psychologically. You're not even thinking about, will that neckline work on me? Will that rise work for my shape and how I want to visually shape it? And so it really shifts that perspective from shopping intentionally or shopping from like impulsing and impulse buying to more intentional, because it's not shopping with an emotional motivation anymore or intention. It's shopping more so analytically of, I like this neckline because it's going to elongate my neck, or I like this pant rise on me because of the proportions of my shape and how I visually like to shape it through clothes. That's going to work for me. And so after every single one of my clients love the body shaping lesson because it just opens up so much more like aha moments of why things don't work on you. And it makes you picky. And being picky is not bad. It makes shopping a little harder, yes, but it makes you more strategic and allows you to say no to pieces that you don't want. And it honestly makes shopping so much faster because you're going to have more no's than yeses. But that's a good thing because, again, at the end of the day, you're going to save so much time, money, and energy by not shopping with an emotional standpoint.
Well, I think to your point of having so many no's, that happens like pre-dressing room for me now, which would have happened post-dressing room. Does that make sense? So rather than getting in there and trying it on and being like, why doesn't that look as cute on me as it looked on the mannequin? It's like I look at it and I'm like, oh, no. And then I just move to the next piece. And so it's interesting because I feel like there are two types of shoppers. There are people who want to look at everything and people who want to look at as little as possible. And I fall into kind of the latter bucket. And when I go shop with my mom, I'll like do a fast lap of the store. And then I go back and pick like the 2 or 3 things I liked. And she's like, are you done? I have looked at 4 items. And I'm like, oh no, those won't work for me for these reasons. And like, we're done. We're moving on. So I agree with you. I think there is like an efficiency gain there. I think something else, you focus specifically on entrepreneurial women a lot of the time who are like building these businesses, building success. When those women are thinking of their future selves, there's probably an element of business success, of monetary success, of scale, of things like that. For the women who are looking to build success in their business or scale monetarily, how do those things connect with kind of this exercise that you lead them through?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it really goes, especially with women who are building their businesses. It goes in back to what I was saying before of just like attracting who you want, client-wise, business-wise, because not all money is good money, right? You want your specific clients that you want to serve, especially women in business. Going through this whole process, it really allows you to understand like who you are and who do you want to work with. And this applies to not even women in business, but also women just who are working in general. Like what is like the community you want to surround yourself with and who are those types of people? Because I've done so many networking events now this past year, and my style and myself has really attracted people who I really vibe with. Like I have some of the best bestie entrepreneur friends now. And there were people who I was like, I didn't really connect with you. And that's okay because I'm not wasting time trying to foster those relationships. But also with style and like my business, it also attracts like my dream clients. Like Kendall, you were a dream client. You were exactly who I wanted in terms of like the type of woman, the type of like open like vulnerability and just like the high achieverness. Like those are the people that I vibe with so much. And with my style and with building it to match my business, it really helps really connect those pieces together with just the type of business I want to run and the type of people that I want to help as well.
I think something that's interesting about this, you and I bring 2 different perspectives to this exercise, right? Somebody who experienced it and somebody who built it. And as somebody who's experienced it, I was talking with a girlfriend of mine. So I went to Mexico shortly after you and I started working together with a bunch of entrepreneurial women. And we spent, I'm telling you, 20% of the time talking about my style experience. Like everybody had questions. Everybody wanted to know how it worked. I even got a text this morning from one of those girls who was like, Kendall inspired me. I bought this dress based on necklines for my body type and I feel so cute in it. And I was like, get it. So it was such an interesting thing to share that. But coming back from that, you and I wrapping up, I have gotten more speaking engagements and brand deals in the last 5 weeks since my style was applied to my social media than I have in the last 6 months.
Oh.
And what's so interesting about that is I don't feel like I quote unquote did anything different, right? My content is the same content. It's still the same level of excellence. My communication style is still the same, but the way I was showing up is now different. And what that has done is allowed me to attract in brands who want that type of visual for their content. People who want to have a speaking engagement with someone who is presenting themselves the way that I am now. And I went back because I'm a numbers person, and I looked at all of my sales calls over the last year, and I tagged them to days of the week because I pretty much historically only got dressed up on Mondays and Fridays because those are the days I make content. So sales calls on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I was probably in a sweatshirt. Sales calls Mondays and Friday, I was probably ready. And I calculated my close rate, and like 80% of my closes were happening on those Monday, Friday calls.
Stop. Oh, chills.
And so from a business perspective, so whether you own your own business or you work in the corporate world and you're building success there is some perception leads to outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People perceive you a certain way. They feel your energy a certain way. You carry yourself a certain way. And that translates to promotions. It translates to project opportunities. It translates to closing clients. And so I love what you're doing because we've all worked with those people who were like, why are you dressing up like this? Why are you doing this? Like, you're trying to make the rest of us look bad. They're not going to promote you just because you're dressed up. Things like that. And the reality is that there's some amount of psychology that says that's kind of not true. Yeah. You do actually get more opportunity with more of that. But then also, how do you feel, to your earlier point, when you show up that way? And do you do better work as a result?
Oh, yes. Everything that you're saying, I'm like, chills, because one, congratulations, that's freaking awesome. But two, like psychologically, yes, it does matter on how you get dressed to a certain degree. But I mean, that's why initially it's all about how you feel, right? And just getting dressed to match that. And then the second, all those opportunities will just start pouring in. Because we don't like to judge a book by its cover. Like emotionally, that's not what we should be doing. But how our brain works, we see something and we categorize it. We put something into categories. And don't quote me on the statistics. I don't have like my stats book in front of me right now. But I know with research studies, psychological research studies show that when you see somebody within 7 seconds, I think, or the 10th of a second. Mm-hmm. Within 7 seconds, you have an impression of a person. Within a 10th of a second, you already develop characteristics about that person, whether it be trustworthiness, like whatever characteristic that you want to develop, but your brain is already developing different categories about you. So when someone's seeing you, whether it's for a interview or for brand opportunities, speaking engagements, people are subconsciously categorizing you into if you are the right person for the job or not, right? And that's why I love when people get dressed for themselves, because again, you're going to attract the opportunities that are meant for you, and people will perceive you differently. Psychological studies also show when you do get dressed in a more elevated way, your perceived trustworthiness increases. And so they trust what you say more. I know it sounds super superficial and it's not the right thing that should happen, on a mindset level, but in the reality, that is what is happening in the brain. So instead of fighting it, take advantage of it and use it for your own benefit.
Yeah. And I think none of this is to say that there's anything bad about anybody physically, right? And what you do that I think is so amazing is when we talked body shapes, going back to that particular part of your program, there's no bad shape.
No.
Right? And there's no bad hair color, and there's no bad eye color, and there's no bad skin tone. There's no negative, but it's leaning into the way you want to be perceived within that. And I think to your point, then that allows you to attract people who want to do business with you, or people who are like-minded, or people who have a trustworthiness factor in you. And so it's important to understand that this is how some of that psychology works, and then choose how you want to show up within that space, right? It's similar to the whole concept of this podcast is how to play that corporate game. And that doesn't mean you have to do anything inauthentic. It just means you have to understand the rules of the game and then choose how you want to play within that. And so I love all of this education that you provide. I think that was one of the reasons I chose to work with you as a stylist was there was so much education about who I was. There was so much education about what was holding me back from becoming her. There was so much education about my body shapes, about colors, about textures, so much that helped me step into that. And I feel that that's really where you are unique in this space is it's not just, let me show you how to put some clothes together, though I do look at my style book every morning and scroll and pick an outfit. It's fabulous. But it's also I just know myself better as a result of working with you. So I
Yeah.
think, it's been so great having you on, getting to talk through all of this. I'd love if somebody's listening and they're feeling empowered. They want to go take advantage of this. They want to go start improving their style, find their style. What's one piece of advice you would give them to like go start on this journey right away?
Ooh, okay. I can do the inner work version, or I can do the physical style part version. Because of me and who I am, I'm going to start with the mindset version first, because that's going to be backwards if you do the physical stuff first. The first question I would ask you is visual, or okay, so that's mindset wise. Physically, I want you to cleanse that closet, because I bet you have so much shit in there. Oh, am I allowed to cuss on here?
Go for it.
Okay, perfect. You have so much shit in there that I bet you has tags that hasn't seen the light of day, that you're saving for when you reach the weight or for special occasions. You are the special occasion, okay? Stop waiting for special occasions to get dressed. You are the special occasion. I always get told, well, I just think that I work from home, so what's the point? You're the freaking point. Look in the mirror. So cleanse that closet of the things that don't light you up. And so that way you can make room for the things that do. Because what's happening with all that shit in your closet, you're having decision fatigue. You're experiencing decision fatigue because you have too many options in front of you and you just don't know what to choose. So you just settle for the same 3-4 outfits that you usually go for, right? It's like if you have kids, it's like if you give them too many toys, they're like, I don't know which one to choose. There's just so many options. They go back to something that they usually go to. It's the same thing with clothing. So cleanse that closet. And once you cleanse it again, because I'm sure you'll convince yourself that, oh, I'll wear this eventually. No, you probably won't. So just let it go. Thank it for all the service that it's done for you, but you've evolved. And once you evolve, your style evolves too. So that's all I have to
That
say
way
on that.
about my brown linen overalls, but they're gone. I said goodbye. It was a torturous experience. No, this was so awesome. I love, Sam, having you on the show and getting to hear all about this, because I think this is so great and it'll help so many women. So if people want to learn more about you, about where they can find you, how to work with you, where should we send them?
Yeah, you have my Instagram and TikTok. It's the same handle, at by Samantha Dawn, by Samantha Dawn. I have applications for my one-on-one, so the same experience that Kendall did. It's called the VIP Style Makeover. If you're interested in what she did, just go ahead and apply. You'll see it at the link in my bio. But if you're interested in other group programs, just send me a DM on Instagram, not on TikTok. And then we can get started, and just making sure that we're even the right fit for each other, because that's important too. Just because you like what I say doesn't mean we're the right fit. And I want to make sure that you and I vibe and you're going to get the results that you want. So send me a DM. I'm always open in my DMs, and let's have a conversation.
I love it. Awesome. Well, if you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure to give us 5 stars. Sam, we so appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have to have you back in the future, but otherwise, happy belated birthday and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.